Hi, Dan. Can you hear me?
Sorry, rather unexpected call suddenly from the hospital telling me that I'm getting a new patient appointment, even though I've been their patient for like 10 years. Oh well. Maybe it's like starting fresh since COVID is whatever. So, how are you? Oh wait, I think you're muted.
I just said that's okay. I'm glad that you could get that taken care of.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
pretty good. Even though your birthday was a week ago, I still am hearing the cat licking your birthday cake song in my head.
Oh, me too.
It's your birthday today. It's your birthday today. There's a cat licking your birthday cake. It's your birthday today. I love that song so much.
I love it now too.
I didn't finish writing down my entry, but what I did was that while I was out doing the stuff, I recorded into my phone how I was feeling. I took voice memos so that
Oh, nice.
I could really capture the feeling. I've decided that I'm going to start using voice memos as part of my restoration stuff too, just because I think that it's good. So yeah, I did that.
Yeah, that's a great option. I put here every single week from the beginning, you can use paper and pencil, or you can use a voice recorder because it's still words. And for some people or in some situations, it's just easier to do a voice recording. And so but I haven't, so far in this workshop, I haven't, as far as I know, had anybody use that yet. So that's really cool that you're using that for your restoration.
I have to say you definitely inspired me because of that, because at the beginning you always write down about voice recorder, and that you inspired me, because then that way I feel like it's more accessible to me, to be able to quickly say, like if I have racing thoughts, I can say my thoughts quickly into the mic. And I wish that I'd done this like when I first went back to restoration and was confronted with the Cape Ivy, because I had so many thoughts and I didn't get to write any of them down. And at the time I thought, oh, it'd be great if I could just say my thoughts into the mic. And it wasn't until you did this that I was thinking, oh, so thank you so much for that.
Yay, I'm glad that that idea is working well for you. Hi, Rivanto. Hi, Sharon.
Hi.
And hi, Stephanie. So I'm not sure how many people will be here today, but we can go ahead and get started. I do have to leave right at 1 today. I actually have a Wild Wonder rehearsal when moderating. So yeah, welcome everybody. Last time we took off the week it was my birthday, and I was inspired by Ivea doing stewardship for her birthday. So I wanted to do the same thing, and now we can all share what we did. Or if you're here and you didn't do anything this past week, maybe you could share something that you did in the past, or maybe something that you would like to do in the future. So yeah, last time we did taking action, because it's important to write about what we do and to observe and reflect and think about things, but also sometimes we need to stop writing for a little bit and actually do something. So today we can share all of that. this is a free workshop, as always, for the Nature Journal community. If you're able to donate, any amount is appreciated to help support the continuation of this workshop, or pass it on with an act of kindness or stewardship, as we're talking about today. And you can also sign up to get the recordings before they're on YouTube if you want. And I can also put the link to the YouTube channel in the chat if you guys would like. So next week, preview is International Nature Journaling Week, and I'm going to be teaching a workshop for day 1, which has a theme of words. So the workshop will be called Science and Imagination, Exploring Words in Your Nature Journal. So it'll be kind of a recap of some of the best tips that have come up so far in this workshop over the past few months. And I'll be teaching that on next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. And I'll also be teaching it next week during our normal time here. So you could come to either workshop live and it'll be the same workshop. Okay, so first I'll share my nature journal from what I did last week. And then Sharon sent me hers, which I have in the slideshow too. And then we can go to whoever wants to share next after that. So here is my nature journal entry. And if you were at Pencil Miles last week, you've already seen this, but I'll just take everyone through it again. So for my birthday, I went over to the old Erie Canal. The Erie Canal is a big deal in New York State. I don't know how common knowledge this is outside of New York State, but we spend a lot of time in elementary school learning about it. It's, of course, a man-made canal that goes all throughout New York State and was made in the 1800s. And now a lot of it has walking paths next to it. People can go to visit and explore nature there. So I started at the parking lot across the street from the Green Lake State Park office, and then went to another section of the canal. So at the first stop, I saw a male and female pair of yellow warblers that were in the reeds. I had asked my friends from the New York State Parks if they could recommend a place that might need some stewardship right now. And so they said the canal might have a lot of litter there, especially around the different access points and parking lots, which is why I decided to go here. And I sketched, normally we sketch nature, but I sketched some of the things that I found in nature and all the different trash that was there. And then a lot of this, like Yvette, like you were saying, you could just get down some of your thoughts quickly about what was going on. So I also just wrote down whatever thoughts were coming into my head about it. And if you pay attention to what I wrote or to what you wrote, you can see how we can use these just spur of the moment thoughts and ideas. We could form them into a more complete essay or something that we could share with other people. So we're observing the things that are physically happening in front of us, but at the same time, we can think about how does this particular phenomena or this particular observation connect to some kind of bigger idea or bigger thoughts or bigger systems that we're part of. I guess it's about this particular piece of trash, but how is it about trash on a whole, or how we can take care of the environment as a whole. So I was writing that it's funny how it was kind of a relief to find some trash. Of course, I'd rather not find any trash, but the fact that it is here means that I get to feel good about picking it up. Because when I went there, part of me was thinking, well, what if there isn't any trash and there's nothing for me to do? Like, then what am I going to do? Of course, that would be better though. So it's kind of funny. And I also found a lot of fruit scraps, especially around picnic tables and things. So oranges, banana peels. There was also a lime, like half of a lime. So I just wrote down my thoughts here. They're biodegradable, but that doesn't mean you should litter them. But they don't break down if they go in a landfill. So it's better for this park if I clean up the mess, but is it better for the earth as a whole? So that was an interesting conundrum that I started to realize. And then I realized maybe if I go to pick up trash again, I should bring a separate trash bag for compost so that when I take it home, I could put it in my compost instead of having to put it in the trash or go to landfill and I'll never actually decompose. And then I wrote, it's like a treasure hunt, kind of like geocaching, but with a bigger purpose, because some of it was a little bit hard to find. There was like, just off the trail or under lot, like you had to look for it a little bit, but there was a lot there. And then I wrote, thanks to eBay from the Nature Journal Club for this idea. I'm glad I decided to do this for my birthday. I'm surprised at how much trash I picked up. I saw fish in the canal, but I didn't see any turtles today. Sometimes there are turtles that sit out on the logs. So wrote in about the trash, but also the wildlife that I saw. And then this part of the Erie Canal has a solar farm that's on an old landfill right next to it. So there's all these solar panels that could put up a couple of years ago. So I was thinking about how the Erie Canal was such like its important new infrastructure when it was built. And then now, like the solar panels is like a new infrastructure that's changing how people do things. So I thought that comparison of like the old and the new was very interesting to me. That's an idea that maybe could be explored further. And then while I was picking up some trash near this bush, so I wanted to come back to explore a little bit more after that. So I wrote, who are you? And wrote down my observations. Shrubby plant about 8 feet tall, yellow flowers in clumps, flowers near the top finished blooming first, and the newer flowers are at the bottom. And then I was resting, sitting against the maple tree and watching this cherry tree, and I wrote this little haiku. Back to maple tree, cherry hides warbler song. Will key be revealed? And then here's another thought that I had. It feels really meaningful to do stewardship on my birthday, to remember that I wouldn't be here without my mother, but I wouldn't be here without Mother Earth either. And then this is just kind of a general idea that I was thinking about. There's this idea that if we do something good, we're not supposed to tell anybody about it. But then we're all down and depressed because we hear so much about the bad things that people do. So how are we supposed to feel inspired and supported as a community if we never hear about all of the acts of kindness that people are doing? So that's why I'm sharing this, to try to inspire other people, like how I was inspired. When you nature journal somewhere, see what you can do to give back to that place. And then I was just writing a little bit more based on my nature journal. So we can nature journal to record our initial thoughts and reactions and feelings, but then we can use what we do in nature journaling about any topic that we are nature journaling about, and to do more writing based off on that if we want to go even deeper with it. So this is kind of what I was already saying. I wrote, we write to learn, reflect, process information. But if we want to make a difference, sometimes we need to put down our pencils and take action. I started wondering, why is there this idea that if you do something good, you're not supposed to tell anybody about it? There's no rule against sharing bad news, so we are inundated with depressing stories all the time. Of course, it's not great to do good things solely so you can brag about it to other people. But if we can all show that we are making a difference together, we can inspire each other to take even more action. So many of the things that we do to help the environment, the impacts are invisible, like with waste or greenhouse gases, etc. We can't actually tell that we're making a difference, and that's discouraging. To stay motivated, we need to do some things where we can see a visible immediate effect. Is picking up half a bag of trash at a local park the most crucial thing to spend time on with all of the huge global environmental problems going on? No, but it does make a difference in my community. And it can help me feel empowered so that I can keep doing even more acts of stewardship and activism in the future. And maybe it can inspire other people to take action too. So before we go on to Sharon's, any reactions or any thoughts or discussion from what I've shared so far?
I am just totally delighted by all of the thought that you've put into this. And that is, first of all, just looking at what you just said, you're right about that. Like that we're so inundated with depressing stories, and that when somebody shares something good, like you said, we're so worried about, like, that's why, because people get down on each other for sharing good news. That's why they invented the kind of derogatory term humble bragging. But it's kind of like, but when you've got good news to share, shouldn't you be able to share it without feeling guilty about having it? And I like this idea of sharing it so that more people will be inspired to do it. And one of the things that can be fun about the birthday challenge is that it's an invitation to other people to join in with you. And so it's an invitation that a lot of people can suddenly share good news together, and that they're doing that in honor of a friend. And so, and just, I just love that you took the time to be curious about the bush and ask, who are you to the bush? And sorry. And I think that picking up the half of a bag of trash at the local park, it is something good. And I'm really glad, like, I think actually you didn't read this line, but I was glad that you wrote down, you feel very tired, because I think it's good to write down how you feel about these things too afterwards, to remember that. And I think it's really interesting about the solar panels on the covered landfill. And yeah, just your entry just gives me life. And happy belated birthday. And just so happy to hear that just all of this. So thank you for everything that you did to make the environment a better place on your birthday.
Thanks, Yvette. I'm glad that you inspired me and I can inspire you back.
I just wanted to throw in my 2 cents worth. I totally agree with Ivea about the whole humble brag thing. You know, we sometimes feel hesitant to share that we've done something that would improve the environment, and or, you know, other different, you know, other kinds of good deeds that one does. But I think that the example that it gives to other people, that it might be just a little thing that you're doing, but millions of people doing little things has a big impact. So yeah, we just need to collaborate and, you know, take our small actions to put forth big changes. So.
Yeah, I like what you just said. Millions of people doing small things makes a big impact. And I think it's really important not to forget that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other thoughts before we go to Sharon's? What Sharon sent me. All right. So here's Sharon's. Would you like to read this out loud, or I can read it?
Oh, I can read it. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Here is what I did for your birthday challenge. Rebecca's birthday challenge was to find a project that would care for the earth. I had just the project close at hand that would also contribute to Dirty Hands. I had recently purchased plants from Wild Type Native Plant Nursery, and they needed to go into the ground to fill empty spots and add to the diversity in my native Michigan plant garden. The selections all had different bloom times and colors. There were different benefits as well. So these, what follows next are some of the plants. I bought others, but this is what I had time to write about. Culver root is a nectar source for pollinators. Cardinal flower and New Jersey tea attract hummingbirds, and zigzag goldenrod feeds bees in the waning days of summer before they hide in burrows for the winter. This garden is my long-term project, begun about 20 years ago. I find that each year brings a different garden. Some of my choices have been garden thugs and need to be judiciously corralled so they don't take over. As the trees and shrubs grow, the light conditions change, and plants that formerly thrived in bright sun now struggle in shade. The ebb and flow of rabbits, chipmunks, squirrels, and groundhogs have taken a toll, with the loss of 20 foam flower transplants to the digging proclivities of the squirrels, nibbling the New England asters by rabbits, and the total destruction of some plants by groundhogs. These plantings serve as a demonstration garden for neighbors as they walk their dogs or accompany their children to the school bus stop. People make inquiries about the various plants, and I try to encourage them to grow these natives to preserve the native insects as well as the plants. Whatever the challenge may be, I can sit on the bench in the rock wall alcove. Oh, let me just see. It's kind of covered up by your picture. And enjoy the sights and sounds and scents of my native garden and friendly exchanges I have with passersby. So that concluded it.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you for doing that. Yeah, you showed us your garden last Friday at Pencil Miles, and I don't know if maybe I missed it or if you didn't mention it, but I didn't know it was you've been doing it for 20 years. So I was really impressed when I read that.
Yeah, it's been, I don't think I mentioned how long I've been at it at Pencil Miles and Chill, but I started it, quite some time ago, and the entire plan was for it to be native Michigan plants. And I started out with a small section, and then I removed the lawn and a little bit more, and then that became a native Michigan plants area. And I just kept removing lawn so that now I don't have any lawn. So yeah, it took time. It's some people can rip it all up in one go round, but I just took it in stages. So I would say it probably took me, I would say maybe 7 or 8 years to eradicate the lawn bit by bit. And what I really find quite surprising is how different it looks every year. So sometimes the native columbine self-sows very freely, and there's a lot of it the following year. And some years there's just hardly any. And the same thing with rose mallow or some of the other things. I get other things that the milkweed also, it actually, my neighbors have me to thank for it self-sowing all over the neighborhood, because the seed is born on the kind of little fluffy things that are like dandelion seeds. They are born on the wind. And so they do get around the neighborhood, but they're not so horribly prolific that they make a mess. So yeah, it just changes every year. So the potentilla, I have to be brutal. I have to whack it back so some of these other things have a chance to thrive, because they're one of my garden thugs.
Yeah, that is so interesting how it changes from year to year. And I really love how for those of you who didn't see the picture on Friday, it's in Sharon's front yard, and it's like the whole yard. And that's really cool that people can see that, because native plants are so important for wildlife, because they evolved with the ecosystem here, and they provide the most nutrients and shelter and food and everything to native birds and wildlife. And sometimes if people have you know, you might have a bush or some like plants from other places that look nice to us and they're very pretty and ornamental, but they can't feed the insects. So they can't feed the birds and they just aren't good habitat. It's called like an ecological trap because they look good, but they're really not. And so that's why native plants are so important. But sometimes people think of them as like just weedy or like not nice to have. So I think it's really, really cool that you put it all in your front yard where people can see it, and you put the bench there and you can use it to show other people what you can do with native plants. And I think also what you were just saying right now, that it changes every year, is so interesting, because that's kind of like in a real ecosystem, you know, plants don't just, you know, plants aren't just planted in one spot and they're always there. Like things are always moving and changing a little bit, and you can kind of see that happening with this little habitat that you've created. And I think that's really interesting.
That's so true, Rebecca. I recently went on a spring flower walk, a native flower walk at a place called Tenhave Woods, which is nearby my home. And the docents that were discussing the different wildflowers that were in these woods were mentioning how here in Southeast Michigan, we actually had a very dry winter. We did have snow, but we did not have as much snow as usual. And there are areas of Tenhave Woods that are usually underwater in the spring, and they were perfectly dry. And you could tell that they had been formerly submerged because there was nothing growing in that area, and there was just leaf litter all over. Anything that was a little bit higher, even by just a couple of inches, was just blooming prolifically in the spring ephemerals. So like the trout lilies, and there were trillium, and you know, just all sorts of the sweet little things that come in the spring before the trees leaf out. You know, they bloom fast, they set seed, and then they fade away as the canopy leaves out completely. So they have to be speedy. But in the formerly wet areas, there just wasn't anything showing at all. So, you know, just even you can see that climate change may significantly alter so many habitats, which we may lose a lot of plants and animals because of that, or they may be displaced. So a grave concern for all of us.
Yeah, and that's really important, because I think a lot of people think about the effects of climate change, and it's always like polar bears and the sea level and all of these really drastic, far away things. And those are really important too. But there are all these more subtle effects happening all around us. And if nobody's out there being naturalists or doing nature journaling and doing science, then we're not even going to realize that they're happening. So I think like when we're doing all these, you know, I think like the stewardship and the just observing for fun, like they can all tie into each other. We're helping to, just by, you know, monitoring and observing the changes that are happening.
Yes, I agree completely.
I also really, one thing that really strikes me about your work with your garden is just the total love and devotion that you have to it, that you spent 20 years working on it. And that is a huge act of love, or as Jack would put it, sustained compassionate attention.
Yes.
To have that kind of sustained compassionate attention for 20 years is And, and I think, and one of the things that I love about having that particular stewardship act is that there's different, like with trash, we're removing something that's harmful from an environment. And with the garden that you're creating, which is an act of stewardship, it's adding something positive to the environment. And like when you said that you were filling in some empty spots, there's so many empty spots that could be filled in by healthy plants like the ones that you did in the world. And so I deeply appreciate that. And the way that you also are observing the changes throughout the years. I think that it's so important to notice those, like you said, because when you stay in a place for a long time, then you can see, is this just a yearly thing or is this a bigger trend? And having all of those years of experience, you can see if they're, because maybe one year the columbines aren't as numerous, but then another year that they are. But if you notice over 20 years that even at their most numerous, they're less than they were 20 years ago, for example, I mean, that might not be even the case, or something similar with the pollinators, then that is long-term, really important data to collect and story to tell. And
I try to share the information about the garden by doing writing on the sidewalk with arrows. Look at this. Here are the Virginia bluebells in full bloom. Or way at the back here, if you look carefully, you can see. So I try to write messages on the sidewalk to alert people to what is going on and what the particular plant of interest is at that moment, because it's always changing. You know, we're kind of in a time now. We had the explosion of spring bloom, and now the summer bloom. I can see the blossoms forming on a lot of the plants, but they're not really showing a lot of color yet. So in a week or two, it'll be an entirely new space because a whole bunch of different kinds of things will be blooming. It's always green though. It's always green. I have a lot of ferns because about half of it is full shade, and then about a quarter of it is part shade, and then about another quarter of it is full sun. So yeah, I can have different light different plants that are sensitive to different levels of light. But it's funny because the trees that I planted in my youth now cast a lot of shade, and so I can't grow the same things I grew 20 years ago.
That right there is also a really good example, and you're observing it firsthand of ecological succession. That when there's an area of ground that's been recently disturbed, like maybe from a fire or whatever, then you have the initial pioneers that grow up from the ashes or from the disturbance. And then as other more slow growing plants take over, then you have different species mixes like you're observing, and different species become the dominant ones. And it kind of is something that you see over time as it changes. You have primary succession, secondary succession. And I think that's just something that kind of gets overlooked sometimes, is how much the profile changes. So it's really cool that you get to observe that firsthand. And may I say how brilliant it is that you write on the sidewalk what to look for people. It's an invitation for people to come in and to interact with your garden. And that is also stewardship of the community, to bring people in, to bring people closer, because then you're showing them something exciting and you're inviting them to take part in the conversation and to also observe over the years how things change. You're increasing their awareness. And I imagine that over time there must be people in the community who stop by intentionally to see what's happening.
Oh yeah, people say they drive out of their way to come by to see what's going on.
The awareness of stewardship too. That it's really just wonderful that there was more I was going to say, but I forgot. But just I'm just really excited about your project. And also,
I just wish more people would take it more seriously. I suppose, they just view it, they look at it, and it's so densely planted. They probably think, oh my God, it's so horrible to try to take care of all of this. But honestly, I have to say that if I get on it in the spring and get everything settled. At this point, I'm not going to do anything more in that part of the garden other than survey for damage, from the squirrels, the rabbits, the groundhogs, and the chipmunks. At this point, I don't have to do anything more. It's been weeded. The leaves have been chopped up and mulched the area. Everything's been planted. I don't do anything unless it needs to be watered because we go through a dry spell. For the rest of the summer, I don't do anything. In the fall, I might go around and try to collect some of the seeds as they ripen so that I can try to get them going in spots that have, that no longer have that particular plant going, because some of the seeds need to be on the soil and go through freeze, thaw, moist cycles before they can germinate in the spring. So I do try to collect seeds, and I put them in envelopes, the extras, on the sidewalk with labels. Plant this now for them to germinate in the spring and perhaps flower in a year or two. So I try to share them in different ways. And people ask, oh, can I come and dig up a little bit of this or a little bit of that? And I let people take some things away if I have plenty of it. I'm not going to let them take some of my more rare treasured things. Like one year I planted 20 foam flower, just little tiny plugs. They were just tiny. And when I got up the next morning to look at them, every single one of them had been dug up by the squirrels or chipmunks. I'm not sure which it was. So I tucked them all back into the ground and I tried to protect them with netting, but whatever animal was going after them completely eradicated them. I couldn't keep any of the 20 of those foam flower plugs going. So this year, at great expense, I bought 5 mature plants. And then I covered them with plastic netting and they seem to be doing all right. So to get some of these rarer and more treasured things going, sometimes you have to go to expense and some trouble to try to protect them from predation. So it is a challenge at times. Did anyone else do something special for Rebecca's birthday?
Or just any other time. Oh, Ivea, do you want to share yours?
So I haven't yet gotten to finish or do my journal entry. But what I did was, I think those of you who are at Pencil Mouse and Chill know already, but earlier that day, we'd had a Nature Journal Educators Forum meeting that was about equity and inclusion. And so I was really thinking about just people and stewardship for people. And so usually I'd go out to a beach to do the cleanup, but this time I decided to go to a nearby park and playground to do the cleanup, because I thought that maybe if certain environments in the city were better taken care of, maybe the people who live there, or the people, like many of friends back in the day, maybe they might care more about the nature, because a lot of folks in the cities, if you live in a lower income place, you're only worried about your own survival for good reason. And if you live in a place like Bayview Point, then the environment isn't just something like the environment is against you actively because you live on a Superfund site. You live in a place with, dozens of brownfields. You live in a place where you breathe air that's giving you asthma and slowly killing you. And in a place where if there's, for example, a chemical fire that happens at the Superfund site, that it goes on for 2 months without being detected, and everybody blames the cafeteria food until they finally use an infrared helicopter to figure out where it is. And yeah, that was a real thing that happened in 2000. And so if those environments were better taken care of for the people, then people wouldn't have to worry so much about survival. People would be able to be surrounded by that beauty. people would feel more like they belong in those beautiful places if they could live in those beautiful places in the city. And so I wanted to go clean up the park and the playground. At this one place that I pass by a lot on the bus, I see that there's a slope with a lot of fennel, and there's trash in it. And it's still there. Unfortunately, I couldn't go this time to do it because I saw there were some tents nearby, and I saw like shoes and food out there. So I figured that if somebody was actively using the space, I didn't want to be intrusive. So I'll go back another time to see if anybody is still there or not. But I went around the block. Part of why I think I didn't get to write is because my son was with me, which I really was happy that he joined me. He didn't wind up picking up the trash, but he pointed at it for me and like cheered me on. So that was really sweet. And so, and also in the playground, he got to play a little bit, but then that's like when I found some nasty stuff in the sand pit. So I was watching for him and thinking, like, if a little 3-year-old happened to play with the sand and then got their hands on that glass that I found in there, the broken glass, oh my God. So that was good. I was recording some of my thoughts on my phone because Rebecca inspired me with at the beginning how it always says that you can always bring a voice recorder. So I'd recorded some of my thoughts while I was out there. And I'll probably write them into my journal entry later on. But it was good to be able to do that. And I'm glad I got to do that in Rebecca's honor. And so, yeah, it definitely was more of a human feeling, but it's making me want to clean up more of the areas in the urban environment so that way people will feel more loved. And so I can share though briefly, like what I did on my own cleanup. I'd never made a journal entry before this year, even though I've been doing the birthday beach cleanup since I was 16. So when I got there, this year I'd seen immediately a great blue heron, and I was like, ooh, shiny, because I love great blue herons. And so I'd written up a little bit about it and drawn quick sketches and then a little bit of blind contouring. And this was the trash that was disturbing me so much, that I was picking up the most of. I mean, I picked up other stuff too, but there's this shredded up plastic that's still there. And I was worried because I seen it blowing around, and it's right next to the marsh and the ocean. So where there's a lot of birds, and I just am worried about this getting into their systems and then killing them and anything else that lives into the San Francisco Bay. So I'd posted this in my journal. I just taped it right in, written some descriptions about it, written a ton of questions, written some ideas for some next steps of researching it, and then also try to draw a picture of the birds trying to get worms while digging around through the black shredded up plastic. The way that they have to put their beak all the way in it, and then they kind of open like calipers, and then they can kind of get the worm. And luckily I didn't see any of the black plastic winding up in their mouths that day, but I was still very worried. And then I had done blind contours of the trash that I found, just because I didn't feel like being very careful, because sometimes I just get tired of drawing and stuff. And so instead I just looked at it and did the blind contours, and I thought it kind of made sense because the trash is all misshapen from, being out and exposed to the elements, and it's already breaking down, especially like the little tiny bits of plastic that you pick up and they already fall apart more than they already have been, like flakes. And you're thinking, oh my God, that's going to wind up in a sea turtle or a whale's stomach, especially because there's a lot of whales nearby. And I was just, so yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what to do about all of this stuff. But I'm glad that just lots of good thoughts. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I remember a few months ago when you were posting about the black plastic and how much it was upsetting you. But I think, like we were talking about with climate change earlier, it's like, at least we're out there and somebody noticed it. Because nothing's going to change about it if we're not out there nature journaling and recording what we see, and then we can tell other people about it.
Also, just now while we were talking, I had this realization that made me really excited. So thank you again for this. At the time, I tried to send pictures of it to some of the people in the parks to ask, what is this stuff? And I got not really any responses. But now that I'm back in the parks doing restoration, I can collect more of it and bring it directly to my supervisor, since we're seeing each other now. And I can say, hey, this stuff right here, what is it? So thank you. Now I have a direct path for action.
Yay. That's good. It's when you sometimes things can come back later and then we realize we can do more with it. It's not, we can't always fix things right away, but over time, sometimes we can do more. Great. Thank you for sharing, Ivea. Ivea's going to turn off her camera now, but she's still here. So would anyone else like to share anything?
I guess I will share, this is Stephanie, that while I wasn't able to go out and do anything over this week, you all have inspired me to do a lot more. And I've written down a number of ideas for things that, as writing prompts that I could write about, as things I can do. I'm also developing a native plant garden out here in California. And I guess the one thing I have been doing lately is collecting, there's a kind of grass that's native to California called purple needlegrass. And I have some in my backyard. I love it. It's the kind of stuff that you cannot water in the summer or it will kill it, which is perfect for our climate. And I've been collecting seed pods. Yeah, we don't get any rain in the summer and we're having a drought year. So the purple needlegrass is great. And I've been collecting seeds from it all spring as they've gotten ripe to give to other people. And I'm thinking, I could put some of those out in front too, to make them more visible to my neighbors who probably hate my yard anyway. So I just wanted to share, thank you for the inspiration.
Thank you, or you're welcome, I guess. That sounds like a great little project that you're doing. And as you already are doing something, so you said you're gathering the seeds already. But I'm glad that this session and especially Sharon's stories inspired you.
I've often thought it would be a good thing for me to do, to put flyers up throughout the neighborhood and invite people to come for lemonade and a garden tour on a certain day during the summer, so that, and then I could maybe give a little handout about the plantings and the seasons of bloom in my yard so that people will know what to look for, and maybe start conversations about how to develop native gardens. I've noticed that some people that have native gardens end up having a rather unkept look. And when it just is kind of like a meadow in your front yard in a suburban setting, it kind of turns people off. So I think a planned garden looks more familiar to an untrained eye in native plants and makes it more accessible to other people if there seems to be a plan to it rather than it being more like a meadow. So
is there something like a Michigan Native Plant Society?
Yes, there is. Yeah.
Because the California Native Plant Society does a garden tour, native garden tour, most years. They didn't do one this year or last year because of COVID, but
Right.
That's a great time to invite people around to see what's possible to do. So it's sort of like you're talking about. And I'm just wondering, well, maybe the Native Plant Society has something you could key into.
Yeah, most of the membership actually is sort of towards the west side of the state, and I live on the east side of the state. So there isn't a lot of activity in that arena nearby where I live. And there was a chapter that was supposed to be Southeast Michigan, but to go to the meetings was, when it was active, was very difficult because it was a long drive. So
right,
it seems like this COVID would have been the perfect opportunity to reignite interest in it because we could have met by Zoom. Yeah.
Mhm,
Yeah. But
mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
missed
that's what my
opportunity.
local chapter has done.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Missed opportunity. Oh, well, we can't do it all.
Oh yeah. Can I also just take a quick opportunity to give props to both Sharon and now also Rebecca, because both of you have started chapters. So, and Rebecca's started hers just on Friday. So woohoo! Go New York Nature Journal Club. Woohoo!
Yeah, we were talking about it in Pencil Miles, and I was like, well, I could just take 2 seconds and start a Facebook group. And if there's interest, then it'll continue. And if there's a lot of interest, then we can split into smaller regions of New York State. But there's so much West Coast in this group, which is where like a lot of it started. But there's a lot of people on the East Coast too.
Just realize that not everybody likes Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah, we've actually been having discussions about finding an alternate sort of form off of Facebook.
I know you're going to have to go soon, Rebecca. It's getting, we'll only have a few more minutes left, but I just wanted to remark that when Ivea had put on, a roll call, where are you all from? And someone said that they were from Maryland, but they spend their summers in Michigan, and they actually spend their summer in Michigan very near to where we have our northern Michigan property. So I was able to hook up with this person, and not that we've made plans yet, but there's a great promontory, a peninsula that reaches out into Lake Huron, called Tawas Point, and it's a great birding site. So perhaps she and I can visit there. And actually nearby, where this other member lives, there was a big forest fire. So we could probably kind of watch how things change over time in the fire area. So interesting. We had a fire that I think it just covered maybe 1,000 acres or so. It wasn't anything on the magnitude of a California fire.
Yeah, Ribando, I see your hand, and I was just going to ask if you have anything to share.
I didn't do anything, but I wanted to tell everyone it's my dad's birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday to your dad.
Happy birthday, Arpan.
Yeah.
That's
What are
cool.
you doing to celebrate?
Oh, it looks like he's frozen.
Yeah. Mhm.
Ray, are you still there, Ribando? You froze
Uh,
her. We can hear
yeah.
you.
I just decided to turn my video off because Melinda said it might speed up the connection.
Yeah, that does help sometimes.
Yeah. Well, what did I celebrate?
Well,
Nothing.
I want to know how you're going to celebrate your dad's birthday. What are you doing to celebrate your dad's birthday?
I'm painting a portrait of my favorite raptor, which is Western Marsh Harrier. And yeah, I haven't finished yet, and it's on my A2 sketchbook.
Oh, the big one.
Yeah.
That is a wonderful gift. I know what that's a
I'm
little
not done yet, and I'm not letting him come into my room because I'm painting still.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to him. He's an awesome dad. I can tell because of you.
Well, he was the one who found Jack. Yeah. And then he asked, do you want to do Jack And it's wolves today. Last week was cats on Thursday, and then I said okay, and then I found the Tuesday group, and then I found Melinda, and then I found this, and blah blah blah. So on.
We are very, very happy to have you. We are. In case you can't tell, we're all very, very fond of you. So we're cheering you on, and we're happy that you're with us.
Thanks.
Well, I think someone that made a comment that we can tell that your dad is a great dad because we see how he has encouraged you. He recognized your interest and he fed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a great dad to see, to notice, and to act to support your interests. That's lovely. And you can tell him I said so.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think we've all loved to see how much you love all of this and how much you've been involved, and it just makes all of us very happy to see, I think.
You also inspire us. Just, you have, in my opinion, you have some of the strongest, most consistent ways of nature journaling that I've seen. That to me, it seems like you do it almost every day, if not every day. And that consistency is so strong, and that you're not afraid to experiment on the pages and to try different things. And I think that is so versatile that I could imagine you picking up almost any tool and being able to work with it because you experiment and try different things so much. And that you inspire me, Ray Bonto.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I do go out nearly every day. Not the ones with rains, but otherwise I go out every day.
And in the way that you follow the pigeons, you've learned the pigeons because you see them consistently. Sorry, I keep repeating that word, but consistency is so important. And that you see them now, you can, like, you notice the unusual things, like that pigeon with the unusual colors, or the way that I think you were saying once that one of the pigeon had secondaries that were brown. I can't remember, but the way that you can notice those details because you practice, because pencil miles. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing all of that with us.
Thanks. You're inspiring too.
All right, so I'm going to end a couple minutes early today because I've got another meeting at 1, but just in case
Well, have a good rehearsal.
Thank you. Yeah, but in case anybody didn't catch it at the beginning, next week is International Nature Journaling Week, and I'm doing a workshop as part of that. Yeah. My workshop will be for day 1, which is the theme of words, at 4 p.m. Pacific time, which is 7 p.m. my time. I'm not sure what time that is for Ubuntu, but probably late. But I know the recordings will be available, and they're having so there are a lot of other events too, not just mine. So there's the days are words, pictures, numbers. I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of. And they're having live workshops for every day for the themes of the day. Oh, and then the 7th day, the theme is nature journaling mindset. So like, how do you bring it all together? So definitely go check out the website. I should put the link for that in the chat too, because there's going to be a lot going on next week and a lot of cool free events. So let me just grab that. And hope to see some of you there. Or you can check out the recordings afterwards. So
with co-hosts, do you know if co-hosts are just supposed to make sure that, like, everybody's spotlighted correctly and like just participants being muted if they're not supposed to be talking? Is that pretty much co-host duties?
Oh, are you co-hosting for some of these events?
Yeah. Well, I'll just ask. It's okay. I can ask Melinda.
I'm not sure. You should
That's
probably ask whoever you're doing it with.
Okay.
So this is the website if you want to check it out. There's all the different days have different themes. And there are different events for all of them. So, and then there's a really funny video with Jack. Has some a little bit of magic in there. So definitely check all of this out if you haven't, and I'll see you next week. So I'll be teaching the workshop on Tuesday evening, but I'll also be teaching it next Wednesday, keeping our normal time. So it'll be the same workshop. You can watch it in either way.
Good luck with it.
Rebecca.
Bye.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you for coming.
See you at
Thank you.
National
Thank you
Nature
for your
Week.
stewardship.
Bye.
Bye.